This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Flowify. Flowify is far and away the best piece of mortgage technology that I have used. I was one of the first users back in 2013, and it was a game changer when it came to upgrading my client experience. At its core, Flowify is the simplest way to streamline the document collection process with your borrowers. The user interface is simple to use and intuitive, which is great for client interaction and experience. If your borrower can browse and upload an email, then they can use Flowify. It creates buckets of what is needed, what is pending, and what we have, so you can avoid all of the back and forth and the "I already sent you that 5 times" conversations. It automates reminders. It's cloud-based, so you don't have to download a big piece of software that slows your computer down. You can access it anywhere you can get online, or even through the Flowify app on your smartphone. The milestone updates provide a simple one-stop communication portal with all parties in the transaction, including buyer's agents, listing agents, escrow or attorney contacts, and transaction coordinators. We've seen it cut down on status calls into our team from realtors and borrowers by about 80 to 90%. There's so much that Flowify does, it's actually hard to keep up. Just recently, they've updated their 1003 loan application to an interview-style loan app instead of just a fill-in form web form. I just did the demo, and it is awesome. I really am excited to get started on it. It's the perfect complement to your CRM and your LOS. If you're like me and your company uses Encompass, it communicates seamlessly with Encompass to avoid a bunch of the double entry work. There's embedded DocuSign within the system. There's account check so you can link to your client's bank records so you don't need to get statements. It goes on and on. So get more efficient. Your processors will thank you. Your underwriters will thank you. Your bank account will thank you. Sign up today and get 25% off your first 4 months by going to flowify.com/sauce. That's FLOIFY.com/SOSS.
Some of the things we do throughout the process that are touch points for them and their family, things that they realized that we didn't have to do, but we did because we cared. How we connect with them on social media, the ways that we look at trying to be constantly engaged in a positive way in our clients' lives for years to come.
You are listening to the Loan Officer Strategy Session podcast, where top producers answer your mortgage origination questions. To get your questions answered, check out our Facebook group, Loan Officer Strategy Sessions, or submit direct to the website for upcoming episodes at lostrategysessions.com. Now here's your host, Andrew Sauce.
Welcome to the Loan Officer Strategy Sessions podcast. I am your host, Andrew Sauce. Today on the show, we have Ryan Grant with Fairway Independent Mortgage out of Irvine, California. Ryan is a good close friend of mine, golfing buddy, and also competitor because we happen to be in the same market, although our market is big enough to where we really don't come head to head against each other very often. Ryan's just a great guy, really, really insightful. I would call him a visionary, a master implementer. We just had a great conversation when it comes to his philosophy around the ideal client experience and how his business is predicated on delivering amazing service and amazing value to his clients and his referral partners. He's got a very unique model that he is implementing and is really doing big things in the industry. You'll be able to hear him on stage at Sales Mastery with Todd Duncan, who was my guest last week. Ryan has spoken for a few years on stage at Sales Mastery about his 5-star borrower experience, but you'll get a little sneak peek here. So hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed recording it. Here he is, Ryan Grant. All right, here we are with Ryan Grant with Fairway Mortgage out of Irvine, California. Ryan, how you doing?
Doing well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I know we've been trying to schedule this for probably the past 2 or 3 months now and finally able to line up both of our schedules to make it work. So it's nice to have you on. Yeah, Ryan is a giant producer in our market, Southern California. The last few years has done over 150 million in production and has a really big team, has really big goals, and is very, very visionary when it comes to his business, and is, I think, one of the best implementers that I've seen in terms of like taking an idea and just running with it and making it work. So I think that's what we'll focus on a bit today, if that's okay with you, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm all yours, man.
Cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit, just to give some context about like how long you've been in the business, where you got your start, how you kind of got to the different evolutions of what you've done over the past 10 years or so.
Yeah, happy to. So I've been in the business since 2005. I grew up, always wanted to be in the mortgage business. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Nobody has. I was going to be an attorney, and I was enrolled in law school. I just needed some money to pay for law school. So I deferred my enrollment for a year and got a job at a mortgage company, and a combination of, kind of early success at that combined with my lack of continued passion for the legal system kind of led me to keep going down the path of real estate finance. So I did the whole refinance call center, mortgage brokerage for a couple of years, and then the downturn hit, and I just kind of started my own little company from there and just kind of try to make it through that time and evaluate if I wanted to stay in the business or not. 2009, I connected with a company called Bay Equity, and they were a wholesale company at the time. They wanted to start a retail channel, and so me and another gentleman kind of helped start their retail channel back in 2009. But it was still just a lot of refinances, and I don't even know if I had done a purchase to date all the way through that time period.
Wow.
Didn't know any realtors at all. And end of 2010, we saw a little interest rate pop, as I'm sure some of you may remember. And my income dropped. The people I was managing, their income dropped. And I realized that I just was kind of tired of my income and my success being tied to something out of my hands and tied to people managing.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to give this one more chance. And my dad actually gave me some really good advice. He's like, why don't you just try and go meet realtors and see if they'll send you loans? I'm like, that just sounds hard.
He was right. You were right. You were actually right too. It is hard.
Yes, he was right and I was right. It is hard. But I did it. So in March of 2011, I joined iMortgage, who was really good at the relationship-based lending model. And I just had some business cards, and I remember going to my first broker preview, just shaking like a leaf and being nervous, and I still hadn't done a purchase to that date.
That's so funny.
And so I just kind of started from there and bootstrapped it to where we are today.
Wow, that's great. So from 2011 to now, which is basically 7 years, you've gone from zero purchase loans to 150 million, of which my guess is you're 75-80% purchase, right? It's incredible. And so I know that your growth trajectory has been pretty astounding, like more specifically over the last, I would say from 15 to 18, you've gone from 90, 100 to up to the mid 100s. And a lot of this is based upon scaling your team up, and not you going from working 40 hours to 140 hours a week, but you maintaining your work schedule, but leveraging out your team. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you grew your team, when you knew to grow it, and what do you evaluate when you're in that hiring and growth mode in a time when you don't really know what the market's going to do with regard to how big the mortgage market will be? What goes into that? What are you thinking about when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just start at the beginning of that. When I started growing my team in 2011, I basically just hired a production partner, loan officer assistant. There's all sorts of names for what you want to call that individual, but somebody that was just able to help me kind of with the blocking and tackling as I was out going to get more business. So I was out in the field as much as I possibly could be. I was, open houses every weekend, and I was trying to go to open houses during the week and broker previews and just trying to be out talking to realtors and trying to get more business in the door. And so I needed somebody to help me with pre-approvals and that type of stuff kind of as it came in.
Yeah.
From there, my second hire was actually a marketing person, and that was someone who helped me just kind of be out in the field with me, help our realtors with stuff that they needed. Quickly after, I hired a third. And one thing that iMortgage was good about, and I can't really say that it was me masterminding this thing, because I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But it was really just a product of, hey, I know where I want to go. And so you kind of have to start with the end in mind. And I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And so I've always made less money than most originators in terms of basis points. Mm-hmm. Not from a compensation plan perspective, but just how much at the end of the day I keep versus how much I pay my team. I've always done it because you can always do more loans if you have more people, and obviously if you have the right people. And so my vision of scaling was really just a product of necessity. And I always tried to grow ahead of necessity. That way we weren't hiring out of need. And I can't say that I always did that well either, but as much as possible, we tried to. In my whole career, people have always told me that we've been overstaffed,
Yeah.
People look at the metrics of, 5 to 1, 6 to 1, 7 to 1, basically loans per support person or loans per salary. And
Sure.
in our really good months, we'll be around 5, but in our average months, we're probably more closer to 3.5 to 4. And it's just a product of me believing that we need more people to deliver the type of service we want to deliver. We need better people that are more highly compensated to give the service levels we want to give and the performance that we want to achieve, and ultimately ensuring everybody's paid well, so there's very little turnover. I mean, almost the entirety of my team has been with me for 3 to 4 plus years now, some even longer. And so, that's always been an important thing for me is work-life balance. I've never been the guy who wants to work 80 hours a week and brags about it. There was a time when I did, and I had to, but it was really just because I wasn't in a financial position to be able to hire anybody. And as that progressed, I was able to kind of build that model out a little more efficiently.
Got it. So a lot to unpack there. So I think the key is figuring out ultimately what you're trying to create, right? Where you want to go. And that doesn't like when you're just starting out, like let's say somebody's listening to this and doing 5 loans a month or 2 loans a month or 3 or whatnot. Like the fact that you may want to be a $300 million a year producer someday won't necessarily change what you're doing right now, right? Because it's incremental. Like to do 300 million, you don't go from 3 loans to 300 million. You go from 3 loans to 10 loans to, actually probably 3 to 5 to 10 to 20, and then you grow it from there. And then you start thinking about what the things that probably Ryan's thinking about right now. But there's incremental steps in there. And I think the key takeaway from this, and I've been preaching this for my whole career as well, and I've also been told by the bean counters that I'm overstaffed. But overstaffed, I think, is a relative term. Like to me, you staff for where you want to be, not for where you are. And yes, you give up some profitability in the short run to have a more sustainable long run business. So I think the key is figuring out, always being one step ahead of where that next phase is in order to deliver the service, to be staffed appropriately to deliver the service that takes you to that next level. So the conversation, I know you and I spoke the other day, and the conversation, we had around, where should we be staffed for where we want to go, is my thing to you is you were probably staffed for 150 million when you were doing 105. And the reason you got there is you were staffed for 105 when you were doing 75. And you never would have gotten to 150 if you were staffed for 75 doing 75.
Correct.
Because it's very difficult to deliver the service consistently when you're staffed for exactly the maximum volume that you can do. Like it's nice from a bean counter standpoint to be staffed exactly appropriate, but the problem is that somebody doesn't do 120 million in volume at 10,000 a month every single month exactly, right? It's 7, 9, 15, 12. So the problem is when in those months where you're doing 15 and 14 million and you're only staffed for, let's say, your average of 10, you deliver poor service. It's impossible. So you lose relationships.
Yeah, and you kill your team and morale and efficiencies, and there's all sorts of ancillary problems there.
Yeah. The key takeaway is to first of all, you don't have to be listening to this and saying oh, I want to get to 300 million or I want to get to 150 or even 100. I think the key is that you figure out where it is that you want to be and to staff for that. And there might be some incremental steps in between there. And then once you get there, you can sort of reevaluate. So let me ask you this. I know we've talked before, and ultimately you're continuing still in a growth mode, correct? Like you're at mid 100s and you want to get to some higher numbers. So what are your ultimate goals? Let's just say over the next, 4 or 5 years.
It's hard to say. Everyone's always told me my whole career, set goals and, all that stuff. And my goal is always just to be more valuable, right? I mean, how can we be more valuable to the clients that we serve? How can we be more valuable to the business partners that we work with? How can we be better for our employees? And that mindset, I never wanted to be at 150 million. That was never a goal of mine. It was just, we got there by always pursuing a thought and a passion. And so I don't know, 200, 300, 500, a billion a year, who knows, right? Really it's just going to be a product of how well can we scale and how can we replicate our client experience to happen the same way every single time, deliver the same outcome, be the same or better business partner to everybody that we're helping in, whether it be just in the county and the ancillary counties and other states. So I don't think there's a number. I just think that it's a growth mentality where we want to find talented people to hire, and we want to partner with talented people in the business, and we want to help as many families buy and sell homes as possible.
Got it. So what your focus then is, instead of like pushing out a number and backing into that, you're just saying, let's do the fundamental correct and know that if we're continuing to exceed the expectations of partners and clients, there will always be business and will naturally always grow, because that whole pyramid thing, right? Every client is going to refer you to X amount of clients. And if you're doing really good service, you're going to get more referrals. If you're providing good experiences, you're going to get all the repeat business down the road. Obviously, the market fluctuates, it goes up and down, but relative to where the market is, you'll consistently see growth.
Yeah, there's going to be refinance times when we can take advantage of that. There'll be times when the housing market's hot, we can take advantage of that. And there's going to be times that are slow that we could take advantage from a market share and a hiring perspective. So you just kind of have to look at every opportunity or every market as an opportunity.
Sure.
And continue to reinvest in it. I think that almost, I would say 99% of loan officers never went to business school, right? Including myself. So we're all kind of trying to figure out how to run a business here on the fly. And what I've just learned more and more as we get into the business aspect of this is if you just continue to reinvest your profits the way that you should in, direct to consumer business and client aggregation and taking care of your past clients in a way that is not typical for our industry, that's where there's some real good growth potential. Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I know that you have really thought about what your client experience is and what you are building in a consistent way throughout your team is delivering a very consistent experience. And I know one of your things that you're known for is meeting face-to-face with clients. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you do, what kind of experience you bring to the client, and how you're able to deliver that service with your team?
Yeah, at first it started off as a sales proposition. It was really just, hey, if we meet with the client face-to-face, it's harder for them to say no to us, which looking back was stupid and short-sighted, but I was a salesman at the time, and neither I nor do anyone else on my team think that we are salespeople at all anymore. So we've really changed our mindset to being consultants and advisors for our clients, and irregardless of what the outcome is. And to be fair, over the last 7 years, you didn't really need to be a good lender to get loans done. You just needed to get them done. The average consumer, the psychology of a buyer or seller was interest rates are cheap, housing is affordable. Let's go buy houses. Let's sell and move up. Let's just get homes, right?
Yeah.
And as a lender, you just needed to be able to fulfill those transactions. Well, now, and this is why I believe that we're going to be more valuable now than we ever have been, is that there's been a big shift in the consumer sentiment. And the shift is, should we buy a home? Does it make sense? Can we? Can we afford it? What's it going to look like long term? And then from a seller's perspective, should we sell or should we stay here even though we're not happy, we're comfortable? So the mentality is very much different than it was even a year ago, and definitely 2 years plus. So from us, meeting with a client face to face has much less to do with the conversion ratio behind it. Now, to be fair, the conversion ratio is much greater, but that's not our main reason of doing it. Our main reason is because if you asked 1,000 people, when's the last time you took an hour out of your day to go learn more about your financial future? 999 of them would probably say never, or couldn't remember when. But it's just because, from a culture, we are typically, after school is done, quite undereducated. We just don't focus on it. It's something that we just kind of go through life, right? People aren't really actively educating themselves on improving their financial future, their real estate portfolio, and that type of stuff. And so most people don't even know that meeting with a lender is a thing, right? And most people realize, or their thought process is that a mortgage lender's job is to pre-approve someone who wants to buy a home and then ultimately fund that loan. Well, that's inherently problematic because that means that we're only going to help the people who've already made the decision.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be looking at it from a consultative perspective. We're just going to be looking at it from a can they do it, not should they do it perspective.
Yeah.
So for us, meeting with our clients is so valuable for them because they can sit down with us, they can see all the numbers, and studies will quite clearly show you that human beings are not great auditory learners. They're much more visual. And so when our clients can see the numbers, when they can ask questions, when they can have the time to ask questions and not have to worry about a biased answer. That's another cool thing that we do is we pay our mortgage consultants or our mortgage advisors, we pay them a salary, which means they're not influenced by the outcome of the client's decision. So they can just give them a no-nonsense, unbiased consultation as to what they can do, how they can do it, and why they should do it without needing to close that transaction to pay rent. And when our clients know that, it makes them feel a lot better because they're not sitting down in front of a salesperson. They're just sitting down in front of somebody who can help them much more accurately understand what's best for them and their family.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lost art. Most people just don't do that. Even financial advisors, a lot of stuff is over the phone these days.
Yeah.
And even when a financial advisor, for the most part, sits down with you, is really more about wealth management than it is financial planning. And so our team is really well versed in financial planning, wealth management, taxes, estate planning, generational wealth planning, insurance. And so we can really look at a client's situation holistically and give them really good advice. And not only can we do that, but we can connect with them. They can trust us. They can see our mannerisms. We can look at them if we say something and see whatever visceral response is. If it's fear, if it's uncertainty, if it's something they didn't fully understand, we can say, does that make sense? Can we walk you through that further? And that's just something that an app will never be able to do.
Yeah.
And I feel is one of the most important things you can do when buying and selling a home.
Yeah, super interesting. So I'm sure that you kind of honed that whole presentation personally, right? Because I know for a while you were doing all of those consultations and you've actually scaled yourself out of that for the most part, right?
Not completely. I still meet with a good number of clients. It's just that I knew that just like any good leader, the major reason why most companies don't grow is typically because of the leader.
Yeah.
They're trying to take on too much. And so I realized that there's only one of me, right? And I can only meet with so many people. So I needed to be able to replicate that process through our mortgage advisors. And so now we all speak the same language. We all have the same questions. We all know the same information. We all connect with the clients in the same way. So it's allowed us to help more families consistently in a way that, in my opinion, they should be helped.
Yeah. Got it. You invested then a lot in both in salaries, but also in your time training these people to look and feel, having that presentation come across the same way, having the confidence instilled into the buyers the same way. And the end goal for you on that was to be able to do more transactions, because otherwise you would have just capped it at you doing it all the time, but you wouldn't have been able to get to the numbers you want to get to. And or you would have been overwhelmed, because if you were doing a really good job, you're always going to have referrals, right? You can't stop that from coming in. So you're getting ahead of the volume, which is, again, coming back to like that, the whole bean counter versus visionary conversation that we had before around, if you know that you're going to give good service and you know that you're going to grow, you have to be prepared for that. And it may not show on the bottom line in 2018, but it shows in the bottom line in 2022. Because you're giving good service that's going to result in future loans.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between good service and a transformational experience.
Yeah.
I think that if our goal was good service, we wouldn't need to meet with anybody. We wouldn't need to do half of the stuff that we do. We could update them appropriately. We could be nice and respectful. We could close the loan with no hiccups and no problems.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the client would say, yeah, I had a good experience.
Yeah.
But that's not what anybody should be trying to accomplish. Especially as your unit count increases, that's the hardest part, is keeping the transformational experience as opposed to good service in line. And the transformational experience, the book Experience Economy puts it perfectly. We are not in a transactional society anymore. We are in an experiential society now. And in today's modern world of people trying to own brain cells, the experience will always win. That's what lives in the reticular activator of your brain.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the pop-up on your computer or anything else. It's when someone says the term mortgage or real estate or finance, is your name or your team's name the first thing that flies out of their mouth because of the experience that they went through, not the good service level that they had.
So talk about that. What is different between the experience that you provide and somebody who's closing loans on time, updating all the parties in the transaction, doing a really good job from pre-approval to funding? What is different? You're incorporating more aspects of their life, right?
Yeah, it's the connection piece. It's how we help our clients before they buy a home, how we help them during the process, and how we help them for years after. And explaining that to them and creating the connection and the trust that they don't see the end of the transaction as the end of the relationship. They see it as the beginning.
Yeah.
And some of the things we do throughout the process that are touch points for them and their family, things that they realized that we didn't have to do, but we did because we cared. How we connect with them on social media, the ways that we look at trying to be constantly engaged in a positive way in our clients' lives for years to come. I mean, it would probably take us another full hour just to go through the client experience, but it's something that we really have spent a lot of time, energy, and done a lot of research on to really kind of uncover what's important to the consumer, because buying a home is an inherently stressful thing. It's statistically one of the 3 most stressful things that people do outside of moving and traffic. And so if you can buy a home and enjoy the experience at the same time and actually look forward to day 2 after buying a home, that's something that a lot of people just can't put a price on. And it's something that gives them a certain peace of mind and confidence in going into this life-altering transaction with more confidence and coming out the other side okay.
Yeah. So I know that there's obviously a ton of research that you've done on that and implemented. And that's why in the beginning, I thought that you were one of the most diligent people in terms of implementing, because everybody has these ideas, right? You go to a Todd Duncan conference and you come away with 20 pages full of ideas of what you can do. And how many of those do people actually implement? I would say very, very, very small percentage of people implement a very, very, very small percentage of those ideas. And you're somebody who's taken a lot of those things, looked at them and said, okay, I want to do this, and actually executed on it. And I know that you also you created actually a product, right, that you sell that really lays out your whole blueprint for this. And we'll link in the show notes below to, I think it's called the Borrower 5-Star Experience. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
5-Star borrower experience.
The 5-Star borrower experience, where you lay out a litany of all of the things, basically like, here's your game plan. And if you want to carbon copy it, you can carbon copy it and become the next Ryan Grant. Why don't you give us just 2 or 3 of the more unique things that you do to create that experience with the clients?
So I think the most important thing that we do is our post-closing management of the client's financial world, for lack of a better term. I used to look at it as an annual mortgage review, but then I realized that was way too short-sighted because it's only a fraction of what we actually do. And so it's the annual financial review now that we do every year with our clients, where we go over everything. I mean, soup to nuts, from income, assets, credit, goals, generational wealth, insurance, investments. Like, we really dive into what is this person doing and how can we help? And obviously, if it's outside of real estate or finance, then we refer them to some great people that we know, like, and trust in the estate planning world, in the insurance world, in the financial advising or tax accounting. So our clients really see us as a resource for all things real estate and finance related, which is huge because I think 30% of Americans, and this could be somewhat of a made-up statistic, but it sounds right in my head, have financial guidance or advice or counseling, right? Like, they employ a financial advisor. But even of that 30%, I would say maybe 5 or 10% get consistent year-over-year actual financial planning.
Yeah.
And so we become that de facto financial planner, right? And obviously we're not doing a lot of the intangibles that come along with it, but we're opening up their way of thinking to ensuring that those things are happening. And that's really great for us because not only from a transactional perspective does it give us more opportunity, but the way that we've helped clients is just, it makes me so proud of our team because we're not just a mortgage lender, right? We're not just someone who's helping give you a debt to buy a home. We legitimately care about your long-term wealth and how you manage that debt and how you manage every other aspect of your life. And people are really started to become drawn to that. And it was a slow road to begin with because people were like, well, wait a minute. Well, so are you a mortgage lender? It's like, yes, we are. And so it's just, people had no clue that it existed. And that's why we're happy to do it.
Well, it probably didn't. I mean, there's probably only a handful of people in the country that employ that or did prior to you. So
again, it's not the idea that's missing, right? I mean, there's a million coaches out there that'll tell you to do this, but how many people have the time, right? And it was always my thing. I always had it on my calendar. All right, past client calls. And then a realtor meeting would come up. So guess what would get moved? Past client calls, right? And it would just happen every week. And so I was like, look, I'm going to hire someone who not only can do this, but would do it better than I will and be able to focus on it exclusively. And so now we have a post-closing division of people that just look out to significantly impact our clients' lives in a positive way moving forward.
Yeah, it's the old saying of not how, but who, right? You don't figure out how you're going to do it because you're not. And right. I wouldn't either. You have to hire for it. And again, that boils back to the first thing we talked about in terms of like reinvesting in your business. In a refi market, that person completely pays for themselves, more than pays for themselves. In a market like this, it's an investment that you're putting forth in future income. It's all stuff that you've promised. And that's how you got the business in the beginning. So you have to fulfill on that promise of doing it, not only when rates are at 3.5, but when rates have gone up too. Great. So that's your post-closing piece. What else are like some of the little like nuggets, a couple of things that you do that are unique?
Yeah, I'd say like our emotional gift points. When a client, we fully underwrite our clients' loans in advance of them making offers. So when they get their underwritten approval done, we'll send a board game to their house. It just says, we know we don't have too much longer in your current home. Play some games with the family, make some memories. We're looking forward to help you get in your new house. When someone gets an offer accepted, they get a congrats pack, and they come back in the office. So we meet with our clients 3 times throughout a transaction. So they come back in the office for the contract meeting, and we give them a bag with all these goodies to move into the new home. And if they have kids that are 10 or under, they get the Bernstein Bears book, so their kids can call moving day, so their parents can read it to the kids. And we send cookies to their office when their loan is re-updated or approved. Post-closing stuff and baby blankets and congrats things. I mean, all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, it's just, we really want the client to know that we're thinking about them. We care about them more than just a transaction. We care about them and their family. We want to emotionalize the experience. And that's, I mean, if you've ever stayed at a hotel, you can get 4 walls and a bed anywhere. But the reason why people pay astronomically high costs to stay at places is not because of the sheets and the bedding. It's because of the service and the experience. And we are fortunate that we don't need to charge astronomically high prices. We're very fair, competitive interest rates, but we just, there are times people ask like, how do you guys make money? You guys seem to do so many things. It's like, well, that's our marketing, right? I mean, a lot of companies are going to be on the radio. They're going to be in the, internet ads, all this stuff. Our advertising is done by just reinvesting in the consumer.
That's great. So I know that people listening to that will get overwhelmed by the 7 or 8 things that you just rattled off. And again, like if you really want to know Ryan's blueprint, it's completely 100%, 1,000% worthwhile purchase to look at Ryan's 5-star borrower experience. I know that's not why we had you on to promote that, but it does lay out a really nice blueprint. And you don't have to implement every last thing that Ryan does. Put your own twist on it. Put whatever works for your market. But if you can implement a few of these ideas, you'd really be on the road to upgrading your client experience in a major way. Great. So Ryan, how many people do you have? We talked before about this like pod system that you have. And I thought that was really kind of a genius way of scaling out. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of how you've set up your little pods?
Basically, we just pair a mortgage advisor with a loan coordinator, which everyone's going to ask, what's a mortgage advisor? What's a loan coordinator? It's basically a loan officer and a loan officer assistant, a highly trained loan officer assistant who can pre-approve, pre-underwrite, who's also good from a personality perspective with clients. And so each of them work together. The deal is that they can close 15 to 20 transactions a month per pod. And obviously there's processors, and then we have a lead manager and a production manager. So there's all sorts of kind of ancillary support members around them and support people around them. But really it lets them just focus on the client. So they can just focus on, okay, let's get Mr. Smith the help he deserves. Let's make sure it's done appropriately and quickly, and let's make as big of a connection as we can. And so those are the 2 people that the client's going to connect with to kind of take all the way through the transaction. And so, again, we've also been told you should streamline it, and the processor should talk to the client, and all sorts of different ways of getting to the end. But again, everything for me boils back down to what type of relationship is the consumer going to have with us when they're done? Are they going to remember the first names and last names of the people who helped them? And if there's more than 2, the answer to that's no. And even 2 sometimes can be a lot, but 2 seems to be our magic number of if there's 2 people helping, there's 2 people that they can kind of know that help them get into a home or help them in any capacity that they do. And so, obviously you can just keep replicating that. You can have 1 pod, 2 pod, 3 pods, 12 pods. It's an easy way to scale that way.
And so your role on the team is to play golf. Your role on the team is to go develop the relationships that are bringing these loans in that are then assigned to each pod. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, not only that, but one thing that there's a great book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that couldn't hold more true in the mortgage business almost than any other business, and in real estate as well. But when you're doing 5 loans, you have to do different things to get to 10.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to do different things to get to 15 and 20 and so on and so forth. And so, at some point, you have to run a business as opposed to just doing loans.
Yeah.
And, for me, for a long time, I wasn't running a business. I was just doing loans.
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned, like, for the past couple of years, I kind of stagnated, and it was because we were trying to perfect the client experience, and I wasn't, and I was in it. I was in it every single day.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was great, but just kind of had an epiphany after I was talking to one of my coaches, and it was just like, yeah, I mean, it's great, but how are you going to do more? And I'm like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So now, I focus a lot on, we're doing a lot more direct to consumer now. And we're, obviously trying to not only deepen the partnerships we have and be more valuable to them, but grow the partnerships as well. And now we're looking at different territories or going into different markets.
Thank God for me, by the way. You can move away to different markets, please.
Yeah, we're all going to pick up and move to Alaska.
That's right.
But no, I mean, it's me trying to figure, okay, how do we get more clients to speak with us? How do we get more partners to partner with us? Mm-hmm. And how do we get to more areas that we could add more value in? And, there's a never-ending amount of work in those 3 spaces. So my golf game would be a lot better if your previous statement was true, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's always new areas to work into. And I would say that probably a big piece of your future growth is going to come from like non-realtor referral partners. Given the amount of work that you're doing on the post-closing with this financial analysis, my guess would be that more and more of your business from a percentage-wise will start coming from CPAs, financial planners, as you develop further relationships in that area.
Yeah, I mean, we're really trying to diversify as much as we can, not because, not for any other reason that we want to help more families. And if we get more non-realtor referrals, then we can obviously turn around and help support the people who support us. So we can help them from a partnership perspective as well. So even stuff like, we're all, certified divorce planning specialists now and or mortgage specialists, which means that we can help people going through more difficult times. We are really working more closely with a lot of estate planning attorneys, probate attorneys, and helping people who have inheritances or trying to figure that out. So we're just trying to diversify as much as possible. The reverse space is really picking up for us.
Yeah.
I did a 3-day reverse seminar about a month or so ago, and it really opened my eyes to not only the need that our society is going to have for that program as a whole moving forward, but the financial benefit, even if the need is not there, the financial benefit of still existing. And so now we have a reverse mortgage specialist on our team that just focuses on that. And so again, we're just really trying to get as diverse as possible and add as much value as we can. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. So I think that niche products like that, when you get to scale, that's some of the extra benefit that you get is that if you're doing enough business and you're touching enough people, you can actually hire somebody to handle that niche product stuff. So you might I could see, I've heard of people having one person on their team solely responsible for anything that comes in that's like non-QM. So bank statement loan so it's not taken away from like the bread and butter of what people do well. And like your core people aren't having to learn this brand new product, but you have one person who's responsible for these niche products. And you can afford that when you have enough people that you're touching that you're going to get some of this stuff come across your desk.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Great. So, hey, we like to try to keep these to right around, drive time or long commute time, let's say. So we're right up at 45 minutes, and I want to be very respectful of your time. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being in my life. You're a good friend of mine, and I know that we bounce things off each other quite a bit, even though we're direct competitors somewhat. There's plenty of business out there for everybody. So I've always appreciated how much you've been really open and sharing, not just with me, but with, on stage at Todd Duncan, on multitudes of podcasts, and just really appreciate who you are.
Of course, man. Well, thank you. And thank you for doing this for the mortgage community as a whole. Obviously, there are a lot of podcasts, but when it comes from an originator, especially of your caliber, it comes from a different perspective. And so for all those people listening, definitely listen to more of Andrew's stuff because he's a genius, and hopefully one day we'll get to work together.
I appreciate it. All right, Ryan. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
The information contained in this podcast presentation is for business and professional use only to assist real estate professionals and is not an advertisement to extend consumer credit as defined by Section 226.2 of Regulation Z. Arklatex Financial Services, LLC, NMLS number 22142 DBA Benchmark Mortgage makes no representations or warranties of any kind, expressed or implied, about the completeness, reliability, suitability, or availability with respect to the information, products, or services. All loans subject to borrower qualify. Other restrictions may apply. Branch Manager Andrew Sost, NMLS number 259002. Branch located at 140 Newport Center Drive, Suite 210, Newport Beach, California 92660. Contact the branch by calling 949-258-9555. Equal housing opportunity.